I'll Be Your Mirror by Nico with the Velvet Underground, Wild as the Wind by David Bowie, She's Lost Control by Joy Division, Naked by Mike Lee, Repulsion by Roman Polanski, Blade Runner by Ridley Scott, The Wasp Factory by Ian Banks, Ways of Seeing by John Berger, Death in Venice by Thomas Mann.
Oh, but it confuses you, doesn't it? Perhaps you should see a doctor. I'm going to put an end to all that confusion.
We wanted a simulation that would be as close as possible to the hostile voice I began to experience. Spencer Tracy's menacing Mr. Hyde in the 1941 film Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde was actually pretty close to the voice in my head. I heard imaginary gusts of wind, firmly slamming shut forever, doors to all my hopes and dreams. In the early stages of the illness, I had to accept things were happening beyond my control. A future I was dreaming of was no longer mine to choose. But venturing into the outside world filled me with terror. The door now a barricade, the beast caged within. In retrospect, I'm so very glad to have found the courage to seek help. What changed? Well, I was so confused and unable to cope. It became impossible to hold down a job, but I still needed to pay rent. So I guess it was practical reasons that forced me to seek professional help. The psychiatrist's diagnosis, based on one informal interview, finally gave a name to my now clinically confirmed illness: paranoid schizophrenia. As with other things, I guess there's a checklist. I obviously ticked all the boxes which diagnosed me as a paranoid schizophrenic. Hearing voices, I discovered, is a common element of schizophrenia. Many of those who suffer from schizophrenia and take their own lives do so as a result of the stigma rather than the effects of the illness itself. Well, I'd like to think, perhaps even in a small way, this series is playing a part in attempting to change things. But it's not only me. There are many people, individuals and groups around the world putting effort into eliminating the dreadful stigma attached to this terrible illness once and for all. What began with moments of clarity, the round roofs of the Salute Basilica, stark against a blue and gold Venetian evening sky, soon became disorientated, disassociating myself from all surroundings as the chemical effects of my daily medication gradually wore off. Concluded 7 days later in what I now must accept is my natural, unmedicated state. Apart from a sense of euphoria as the medication first wore off, I've no recollection of the events whatsoever. The person I was with later described their experience of the days that followed. Sleepless nights filled with incoherent conversation, completely reliant, utterly helpless and totally withdrawn, the days filled with crying and sobbing. Forming bonding relationships proved difficult, constantly drowsy due to heavy medication. I took a leap of faith and confided in a new friend at work. Shortly after, I heard laughter in the kitchen. "Yes, Lisa, can you believe it? They should lock her up and throw the key away." The sense of betrayal stunned me. I was overwhelmed and left the job soon after. I met someone I really liked, and 2 weeks later informed them there was something important I thought they should know. He was relieved it wasn't something much worse. Telling him, he said, was an act of courage and tightened our bond. Well, it certainly didn't happen overnight, but the years in between did provide me with a simple rule. It wasn't important I should tell everyone, but everyone I tell should be important. I met my birth mother many years later. She had a mental illness so severe it had been decided by others to separate mother and child at birth. Far more important than the decision I made is thankfully having the mental ability to choose. Sadly, due to her illness, something my birth mother did not possess. She was placed at the more extreme end of the autistic spectrum. As a result, she was forced to give up her newborn child for adoption. Do I agree with this? Well, it's difficult to say, as each situation is different. Heartbreaking nonetheless. If I can help anyone by recounting my personal experiences, I'd be more than happy with that.